great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with voices from hundreds of worlds. The air shimmered with strange colors, as representatives of alien races argued, debated, and hissed in their own languages. At the very center of the hall, surrounded by the eyes of the galaxy, stood a small group of humans. Compared to the tall insectoids, glowing energy beings, and armored reptilians around them, the humans looked fragile and out of place. But their eyes carried something most others did not, an unshakable fire. For years, humanity had worked hard to earn its place among the stars. They had learned alien languages, followed trade laws, and joined in galactic projects. They thought they had finally been accepted. But acceptance in the Council was never truly real. Many species whispered that humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too young to be trusted with power. Now those whispers had grown into an official trial. The Council had called for judgment. Would humanity stay as part of galactic society, or would they be cast out forever? The Council speaker, a tall being made of translucent crystal, raised its voice so that all could hear. Humans, it declared, you are accused of violence, of arrogance, and of spreading chaos wherever you go. You do not respect our ways. You turn every discovery into a weapon. You cannot be trusted with the unity of the galaxy. Today, we decide your future. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some races nodded in agreement. Others looked away, uncomfortable. The humans' lead ambassador, an older man with gray hair and calm eyes, stepped forward. His voice was steady but filled with emotion. Yes, we have fought wars, he admitted. Yes, we have defended ourselves with weapons. But so has every race in this chamber. We only ask for fairness. We only ask for the same chance to grow that you were given. The words echoed, but few seemed moved. One reptilian general slammed his claw against the table. Humans pretend to seek peace, yet they build ships of war. Even now, they prepare weapons in secret. They are a danger to us all. The human ambassador's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, but he knew the Council's mind was already made. Still, he looked around the chamber, trying to meet the eyes of every representative. If you push us away, he warned softly, do not think we will vanish. We will survive, whether you stand with us or against us. That warning was taken as a threat. The Council chamber roared with outrage. Beings of every shape shouted their anger. The speaker raised its crystal arms, calling for silence, and then gave the verdict. By majority decision, humanity is hereby exiled from the Galactic Council. No trade shall be allowed. No colony shall be recognized. No ship shall enter Council space. From this day forward, humanity stands alone. The words struck like a hammer. The humans felt the weight of every eye upon them, some cold, some filled with hatred, and a few filled with pity. The ambassador clenched his fists but did not bow his head. Then we stand alone, he said quietly. But remember this moment. One day, you will. The Council guards, towering insectoids with armor like stone, marched forward to escort the humans out. The crowd of representatives parted, some sneering, some whispering, some refusing to look at them at all. For the first time in history, humanity was not just ignored. They were cast out, branded unworthy of the stars. When the humans left the chamber and boarded their small shuttle, silence fell among them. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, one of the younger diplomats whispered, "What will we do now? Without the Council, we have nothing." The older ambassador looked out the window, watching the endless stars beyond the space station. His voice was calm, but beneath it was a storm. "No," he said. "We have ourselves. And that is enough." Back on Earth, the news of exile spread quickly. People reacted with anger, sadness, and fear. Some cried, believing their future among the stars had ended forever. Others shouted in rage, swearing that the galaxy would regret this insult. Governments argued about what to do next. Should they try to beg for forgiveness? Should they retreat and focus only on Earth? Or should they prepare for the worst? Prepare for a future where the galaxy was their enemy? The choice did not come easily, but as days passed, one truth became clear. Humanity had always been at its strongest when tested, always grown sharper when pushed into a corner. If the galaxy thought exile would break them, they were wrong. Exile would forge them. Even in those first dark days, rumors began to spread. Whispers in secret laboratories, murmurs among military officers, hidden messages exchanged between colonies. Something was being planned. Something powerful. Something that would make the Council remember the day they exiled humanity. No one knew what it was yet, but one phrase passed from mouth to mouth, quiet and defiant. They will see. One day, they will see. And so, humanity's exile began not with silence and surrender, but with the spark of determination. The galaxy believed they had buried mankind. Instead, they had planted a seed. The exile hit Earth harder than anyone expected. Overnight, all official trade routes closed. Alien merchants who once brought medicine, advanced materials, and rare foods simply stopped coming. The great stations orbiting Jupiter and Mars received orders from the Council. No human ship was to be welcomed, no human colony to be supplied. For the first time in decades, humanity was truly alone among the stars. Factories that depended on alien alloys fell silent. Hospitals discovered that some of their most important medicines, bought from Council members, were no longer available. Farmers on Mars struggled when their imported tools broke down and could not be replaced. On Earth itself, people worried that their world was being strangled. Some feared famine. Others feared war. In the beginning, there was despair. Many people believed that without the Council, humanity could not survive. News broadcasts showed angry protests in city streets. Why did we push them? Some shouted. Why couldn't we just obey their laws? Others answered with fury, they never wanted us as equals. They only wanted us weak. Families sat around tables, wondering if their children would grow up in a shrinking, dying world. Yet, slowly, something began to change. Where despair had lived, determination started to grow. Humans had always been stubborn. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and wars long before they reached the stars. If the galaxy thought a ban would break them, then they did not know Earth at all. Scientists returned to their laboratories, refusing to let progress stop. If we cannot buy their technology, they said, we will build our own. Engineers who once depended on alien metals experimented with new ways to forge stronger materials from Earth's resources. On the Moon, mining companies pushed deeper into the rock, pulling out elements that had never been considered valuable before. Farmers invented clever machines to replace those they could no longer buy. Even doctors began experimenting with substitutes for alien medicine, combining human biology with creativity. At first, these efforts were clumsy. Machines broke. Medicines failed. Mistakes cost lives. But with every mistake, humanity learned. And as they learned, they grew stronger. Beyond Earth, in the scattered colonies, the same spirit burned. On Mars, settlers gathered in great domes and swore that they would never abandon their new world, no matter how hard life became. In the asteroid belt, miners formed secret alliances, sharing resources and knowledge. Even the small outposts near Saturn and Neptune refused to give up. We will not be forgotten, they declared. We will not vanish. Meanwhile, the galaxy watched. Alien traders still passed by the edges of human space, curious but cautious. Some pitied humanity, some laughed at them, and some feared what exile might create. Whispered rumors reached Council worlds. Humans were not collapsing as expected. They were adapting. They were preparing. Among humanity itself, another whisper began to spread, one that stirred both hope and fear. Somewhere in the asteroid belt, far from the Council's eyes, a project had begun. It was said that the governments of Earth and the colonies, despite all their arguments, had agreed on one thing. They needed a weapon. Not a weapon to attack, but a weapon to defend. Something that would make the galaxy think twice before pushing them again. No one knew the details. Workers were sworn to silence. Supplies were moved in secret. But the rumor had a name, the Aegis Project. And though no one could prove it was real, the idea alone gave people strength. If they exile us, said one miner with a proud grin. Then we will build something that makes the stars remember our name. The council, of course, was not blind. Their spies reported unusual activity in human space. Factories working day and night, shipyards growing busier than ever, strange shipments vanishing into deep space. At first, the council laughed. Let them play at building, some said. They have nothing compared to us. But others were not so sure. They remembered human wars, human inventions, and human victories against impossible odds. And in their hearts, they wondered if exile had been a mistake. Back on Earth, life was still hard. Food was rationed in some cities. Power shortages struck colonies on the outer planets. Families learned to live with less. But through the struggle, something powerful began to unite humanity. For once, they were not divided by borders or politics. Every nation, every colony, every settlement understood that survival depended on standing together. The ambassador who had once faced the council never stopped speaking to the people. His broadcasts reached Earth and the colonies alike. They exiled us because they feared what we could become, he said. So let us become more than they ever imagined. Let us grow in ways they cannot stop. We are alone now, yes, but we are alone together. His words were repeated in classrooms, in domes, in ships traveling between the stars. They became a promise. Years passed. Exile did not destroy humanity. It tempered them. Like metal in fire, they became sharper, stronger, more united. Children grew up knowing that the galaxy had turned its back on them. But they also grew up proud that their people endured. Proud that when the council said you are finished, they proved them wrong. The galaxy had expected humanity to fade quietly into history, remembered only as a violent mistake. Instead, humanity was writing a new chapter. And though no alien could yet see the shape of what was coming, the signs were there for those who looked closely. Humanity was not dying. Humanity was preparing. And deep in the silent darkness of the asteroid belt, where hidden stations hummed with energy and secret ships waited, the heartbeat of the future grew stronger. The council had cast them out. But in that exile, humanity had found not weakness, but purpose. I end the cold silence of the asteroid belt. Far from the eyes of the Galactic Council, humanity's greatest secret began to take shape. The project was known only by whispers, passed quietly between engineers, miners, and soldiers. Its true name was the Aegis Project. Officially, it did not exist. There were no public records, no announcements, no blueprints in open archives. But in hidden shipyards carved into rock, behind walls of secrecy, something extraordinary was being built. A warship unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The idea was born the moment humanity was exiled. The leaders of Earth and the colonies argued endlessly at first. Some wanted peace at any cost, others wanted revenge, and many wanted simply to survive. But one truth united them. Without power, they would always be vulnerable. The Council had exiled them because humanity was weak in comparison to the great fleets of the galaxy. If that weakness continued, exile would not be the end. It would only be the beginning of further humiliation. So, slowly and carefully, governments agreed on a dangerous path. They would build something that gave them strength again. It began with small steps. A secret committee gathered the best scientists, engineers, and tacticians from every human settlement. Some were lured from their comfortable lives with promises of glory. Others volunteered willingly, driven by anger at the Council's judgment. They met in hidden stations, deep underground or in isolated outposts where no alien spies could see. There, they shared ideas that had once been forbidden, ideas that mixed human creativity with alien technology. Pieces of alien starships had been bought, stolen, or salvaged over the years. Normally, such experiments were tightly controlled by the Council. But exile had removed those restrictions. Now, humans studied the parts freely. They tore down alien weapons to understand how they worked. They combined them with human systems, testing, failing, and testing again. Every failure brought new knowledge. Every discovery brought them closer to their dream. The workers in the asteroid belt were the first to notice strange shipments. Massive loads of rare metals, more than any single colony should need. Containers of fuel, far beyond the requirements of local ships. At first, no one dared ask questions. But soon the rumors began. "They're building something huge," whispered one miner to another. "Not a station. Not a colony. A ship." The whispers spread like fire, growing bolder each time. Some laughed at the idea. Some were afraid. But many felt a spark of pride. Perhaps, after all, humanity was not just enduring exile, but preparing to rise again. Deep inside a hollowed-out asteroid, construction began. Massive steel beams were welded together in silence, their sparks hidden from passing ships. Engines larger than any human had ever built were assembled piece by piece. Shielding systems, weapons arrays, sensor grids, all were tested and installed with patience. Thousands of workers lived in secrecy, their families believing they were on simple mining missions. They ate, slept, and worked inside the rock, never allowed to leave until their service was complete. For them, the project was not just work, it was destiny. The design of the ship was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Where alien warships relied on tradition, each one built according to centuries of old patterns, humans dared to be different. They made the hull stronger by layering new alloys with older, proven metals. They created engines that could burn hotter, faster, but also smarter, using sudden bursts to outmaneuver enemies instead of relying only on speed. Weapons were arranged in unpredictable ways, making it impossible for enemies to guess where the next strike would come from. Every detail carried the mark of human ingenuity. But more important than the ship's weapons was its purpose. The Aegis was not designed for conquest. It was not meant to invade or destroy entire worlds. It was meant to be a shield. A shield for Earth, for the colonies, for humanity itself. That was why it carried the name Aegis, the ancient word for a protector's shield. Yet those who built it also knew the truth. To defend, sometimes one must strike back. And so the Aegis carried enough firepower to shake even the strongest fleet. As the years passed, the ship grew. Its skeleton became a body. Its body became a fortress. The workers who first arrived as young men and women saw their children born inside the hidden stations. Entire families gave their lives to the project. Some died in accidents, for the work was dangerous. Others simply grew old, never seeing Earth again. But no one complained. They knew they were part of something greater than themselves. The leaders of the project watched with quiet pride. They knew the risks. If the Council ever discovered the truth, they would send fleets to destroy the Aegis before it was complete. That was why secrecy was so important. Every signal was hidden. Every supply ship disguised as ordinary cargo. Only a handful of humans across the entire system even knew the project was real. For everyone else, it was still just a rumor. But the workers knew better. They could feel it in the vibrations of the engines being tested. They could see it in the glow of the power caused deep inside the hull. And they could hear it in the way their supervisors spoke in hushed voices, carrying both fear and pride. By the time the Aegis neared completion, humanity itself had changed. Exile no longer felt like a punishment. It felt like a challenge, one they were slowly overcoming. Where once there had been despair, now there was quiet confidence. And though most people still did not know the details, they believed in the rumor. Something is coming, they said. Something that will remind the galaxy who we are. One night, as the workers stood on the observation deck carved into the asteroid wall, they looked out at the great shape floating in the void. It was not finished yet, but its form was clear, a warship vast enough to rival the Council's finest, sharp and proud like a sword raised against the dark. The sight filled them with awe. In that moment, they understood the truth. Exile had not broken humanity. It had forged them into something new. And soon, when the time came, the galaxy would see the Aegis. And everything would change. The day finally came when the Aegis was ready to leave its hidden cradle. For years, it had been nothing more than a rumor, a whisper among miners and colonists. But now, in the hollow of the asteroid where it had been built, the ship stood complete. Its long dark hull stretched like a shadow across the void, bristling with weapons that gleamed faintly in the starlight. It was silent, but not lifeless. Its engines hummed with quiet power, waiting for the command to awaken fully. The workers who had spent their lives building it gathered in silence as the captain walked onto the command deck for the first time. He was not a politician or a famous general, but a soldier who had lived through the shame of exile. His face was marked by years of sacrifice, his voice steady but heavy with responsibility. "Today," he said, his words carried through every speaker, "we test not just a ship, but the spirit of humanity. Remember this moment. Remember that we were exiled, but we were never defeated." With that, the order was given. The docking clamps released, the massive engines flared, and the Aegis drifted out of its hidden hangar into open space. For a moment, everyone held their breath. Would it fly? Would it hold together? Then the great ship glided smoothly, steady as a bird stretching its wings. Cheers erupted across the stations. Humanity's shield had finally taken flight. But a ship was more than just its engines. It had to be tested in real danger. And the galaxy, as always, provided that danger. Only a few days after its first flight, reports reached the hidden base of a pirate fleet attacking a neutral colony on the edge of human space. The pirates were not new. They were scavengers made up of outcasts from dozens of species, preying on weak settlements. Normally, the Galactic Council would send patrols to stop them. But with humanity exiled, no council fleet dared to defend a colony near human borders. The people there were left helpless. The Aegis was still unproven. Its weapons had never been fired in battle. Its shields had never been struck. Many argued it was too dangerous to reveal the ship so soon. "If the council learns of this," warned one advisor, "they will know what we've built." But others disagreed. "What good is a shield?" the captain asked quietly, "if it does not protect the innocent?" The decision was made. The Aegis would fly into battle. When the ship arrived at the colony, the pirates were already attacking. Fires burned across the settlement domes. The pirate fleet orbited above, firing their weapons freely, confident that no one would challenge them. Their ships were a ragged collection of stolen council cruisers, patched freighters, and improvised gunships. Against the fleets of great powers, they were weak. Against defenseless colonists, they were monsters. The pirates laughed when their sensors picked up a single human warship arriving. "Exiles," their leader sneered. "They dare to fight us with one ship." But their laughter quickly faded when they saw the scale of the Aegis. It dwarfed their largest cruiser, its weapons glowing with power they had never seen before. The captain gave a single command: "Engage." The Aegis came alive. Beams of energy lanced across the void, cutting through pirate ships like paper. Missiles launched in perfect arcs, striking with terrifying accuracy. The pirates fired back, but their weapons struck the Aegis's shields, which shimmered like a wall of light and held strong. Every time the pirates tried to regroup, the Aegis anticipated their moves, outmaneuvering them with bursts of sudden speed. For the first time, the Aegis revealed its secret. It was not only strong, it was smart. Its systems had been designed to learn, to adapt in the middle of battle. Each enemy strike was studied, countered, and used to improve its defense. Within minutes, the pirate fleet began to collapse. Ships exploded one by one, torn apart by relentless fire. But the captain did not seek destruction alone. When some pirate ships turned to flee, the Aegis did not pursue them to the end. Instead, it broadcast a message across all channels: humanity does not destroy those who surrender. Leave now, and live. Stay, and you will be ended. Terrified, the survivors fled into the darkness, leaving wreckage behind. The colony, half ruined, looked up at the great ship that had saved them. For the first time since exile, humans had not been victims. They had been saviors. Word spread faster than light. Traders whispered of a massive human warship that had defeated an entire fleet alone. Colonists spoke of a shield that appeared when all hope was lost. Pirates carried the tale to every dark corner of the galaxy, warning each other never to cross human space again. The council tried to dismiss the reports as exaggeration, but doubt crept into their halls. Could it be true? Had the exiles really built such a weapon? Back aboard the Aegis, the crew stood in silence as they looked at the colony below. They had seen the power of their ship, and they had proven it worked. But more than that, they had proven something deeper, that humanity, even in exile, still carried the will to protect, to fight, and to endure. The captain stood at the command deck, watching the stars. "This is only the beginning," he said softly. "The galaxy thinks we are broken. They think we are weak. Today, we showed them the truth. Tomorrow, they will remember us." And with that, the Aegis turned its prow toward the endless dark, its engines blazing, ready for the battles yet to come. The first test was over, and humanity had passed it with fire. The battle against the pirates changed everything. Before that day, the Aegis had been nothing more than a rumor, a whisper passed between miners, traders, and settlers. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity had built something powerful, something dangerous, something that could stand alone against fleets. The news spread quickly, faster than anyone could control it. Stories grew larger with every telling. Some said the ship had destroyed hundreds of pirates with a single blast. Others claimed it could vanish into shadows and reappear at will. None of it mattered, because the truth was enough. Humanity was no longer defenseless. The Galactic Council could not ignore it. Within their great chamber, the crystal speaker called for an emergency gathering. Representatives of dozens of species arrived in haste, their voices filled with worry. The reptilian general who had once demanded humanity's exile hissed with anger. "We warned you all. Humans cannot be trusted. Exile has not weakened them. It has made them more dangerous." His words echoed across the hall. Others agreed. They feared what exile had created. Humanity had been denied access to alien trade and resources, yet they had built something the Council itself struggled to match. What else were they building in their hidden stations? What new weapons lay in the dark, waiting to be unleashed? But not everyone in the Council wanted war. Some argued for caution. A soft-voiced aquatic delegate reminded the chamber that the humans had used their ship not for conquest but for defense. "They could have destroyed the colony," she said. "Instead, they saved it. That is not the act of aggressors. That is the act of protectors." Her words were met with murmurs, but the fear of humanity's power was stronger than her reason. Meanwhile, among ordinary people across the galaxy, something surprising happened. Aliens who had once dismissed humans began to see them differently. Merchants who had refused to trade with Earth now wondered if they might profit from secret deals. Colonies near human space felt safer knowing the Aegis might come to their aid. Some even began to question the Council's judgment in exiling an entire species. "Perhaps," whispered one colonist to another, "the humans were treated unfairly. Perhaps exile was a mistake." For humanity, the victory against the pirates brought pride but also caution. The leaders of Earth knew the Council would not stay silent. Every government, every colony felt the weight of what was coming. The captain of the Aegis reported his success with calm words, but his eyes carried the warning: the Council would respond. And when they did, it would not be with pirates. It would be with fleets. In the days that followed, the Aegis sailed quietly between human colonies, a silent guardian watching the stars. Everywhere it appeared, people cheered. Children painted its image on the walls of domes, calling it the shield of humanity. Workers in shipyards labored harder, knowing their efforts were feeding the legend. Hope, long forgotten after exile, had returned. But hope also brought fear. Some on Earth worried that the Aegis would provoke the Council into open war. "We are not ready," politicians argued. "One ship cannot defend us forever." Others disagreed. "The Council already hates us," they said. "At least now, they will think twice before attacking." In hidden meetings, leaders of the colonies debated late into the night. They could not undo what had been done. The Aegis had revealed itself, and the galaxy had seen. The question now was not whether the Council would act, but when. And far away, in the dark halls of Council power, plans were already being made. Fleets were assembled under the excuse of patrolling the borders. Spies were sent to gather more information about human shipyards. Propaganda spread through alien channels, painting humans as reckless, violent, and a threat to galactic peace. The Council was preparing the galaxy to accept another war, this time not just exile, but perhaps extermination. Yet the Council was not united. Some races resisted the call for war, remembering the day the Aegis had saved civilians who were not even human. They asked a simple question. If humanity was truly dangerous, why had they spared those who surrendered? Why had they protected instead of destroyed? No one in the chamber could answer. On the Aegis itself, the crew prepared quietly. They knew the Council's fleets were stronger and more numerous. They knew their single ship could not defeat the galaxy. But they also knew something the Council had forgotten. That humanity had survived every trial in its history by refusing to surrender. Exile had not crushed them. Isolation had not broken them. If war came, they would fight with everything they had, and the galaxy would learn what it meant to face a people who never gave up. The captain stood often at the viewing deck, watching the endless stars. He knew each light represented a world, some hostile, some neutral, some perhaps secretly wishing humanity well. He did not dream of conquest. He dreamed of freedom, of safety for his people, of a galaxy where humans would never again be silenced or cast aside. And though he did not say it aloud, deep in his heart he believed the truth. The Aegis was not just a ship. It was a message. A message to the galaxy that exile had forged something stronger than fear. The first battle had been against pirates. The next battle would be against the Council itself. And already, in the shadows of space, fleets were moving. The galaxy was changing, and all because of a single warship built by exiles. The day of confrontation arrived sooner than humanity expected. For months, the Aegis had patrolled human space, keeping pirates and raiders away. Its presence had brought hope to colonies and fear to enemies. But the Galactic Council could no longer ignore it. Rumors of the warship had spread too far, and the Council feared what humanity might become if left unchecked. They decided to send a message, not with words, but with force. It began with reports from human scouts. Strange fleets were moving at the edge of Sol's borders. Ships bearing the banners of several Council races gathered in silence, waiting just beyond the invisible line that marked human space. At first, some leaders on Earth hoped it was only a show of strength, a warning meant to intimidate. But soon the truth became clear. This was no patrol. This was an invasion force. When the message finally arrived from the Council, it was short and cold. Humanity is in violation of exile. Disarm your warship and surrender, or face destruction. The words were broadcast on every channel, heard by every colony. Fear swept through the people. Mothers held their children close, workers paused in their factories, soldiers tightened their fists. Everyone knew that surrender meant slavery, and resistance meant war. The captain of the Aegis stood before his crew. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. They gave us exile, he said, and we endured. They gave us silence, and we created strength. Now they give us threats. We will answer, not with fear, but with truth. Humanity will not bow. His words spread quickly, carried on secret channels to Earth and Mars and every outpost in the asteroid belt. They became a rallying cry, we will not bow. When the Council fleet entered human space, it was a sight to shake the stars. Dozens of massive battleships, cruisers, and carriers spread across the void. Their weapons glowed, their engines burned bright. It was the combined strength of several species, enough to crush entire worlds. And against them, standing alone at the edge of the Sol system, was one ship, the Aegis. The Council commander hailed the human warship, his voice filled with contempt. You are surrounded. Power down your engines, lower your shields, and prepare for boarding. This is your only chance. Silence followed for a long moment. Then the captain of the Aegis replied. His words were broadcast across every channel, reaching not just the Council fleet but every human colony listening in secret. We asked for peace, and you gave us exile. We asked for respect, and you gave us silence. Now you come with threats, thinking we will break. You are wrong. We are still here. We are stronger than ever. And today, you will listen. With that, the confrontation began. The Council fleet opened fire, beams of energy streaking across the void. The Aegis shook as the first blast struck its shields, but the defenses held firm. In response, the Aegis fired back. Its weapons cut through the nearest cruiser, splitting it apart in a brilliant flash of light. The battle erupted. Dozens of enemy ships surrounded the lone human warship, but the Aegis moved with speed and precision they had not expected. Its engines flared, sending it darting between enemy formations. Its weapons fired in calculated bursts, striking weak points again and again. Where other ships fought with brute force, the Aegis fought with cunning, outmaneuvering ships that were far larger in number. Inside the Council fleet, panic began to spread. The humans had built something that should not have been possible. Every move of the Aegis seemed to anticipate their strategy. Every strike landed with purpose. Entire squadrons were destroyed before they understood what was happening. Yet the battle was not one-sided. The Aegis trembled as wave after wave of fire struck its shields. Systems overloaded, alarms rang, and crew members struggled to keep the ship alive. At one point, a massive blast from an enemy carrier tore a section of armor from the hull. The ship groaned, lights flickered, but still it fought on. The crew refused to surrender. Then something unexpected happened. In the middle of the chaos, several Council captains refused to fire. They had seen the Aegis spare fleeing pirates in its first battle. They had heard the captain's words about peace and respect. To them, this was not a war of defense but a war of fear created by the Council. One by one, their ships pulled back, breaking formation. Confusion spread across the Council fleet. The captain of the Aegis saw his chance. Instead of pressing the attack, he opened a channel once more. "Look around you," he said. "We do not seek your destruction. We only seek our right to live, to grow, to be respected. If you continue this war, you will learn that exile did not make us weaker, it made us unbreakable. But if you stand down now, no more lives will be lost." The words struck deeper than any weapon. Some Council ships stopped firing altogether. Others fled into the darkness. The fleet that had arrived so confidently began to fracture, its unity dissolving. Within hours, the battle was over. The Aegis still stood, scarred but unbroken, while the Council's great force limped away in shame. For the first time in history, a single human warship had faced the might of the galaxy and endured. Across every human colony, cheers erupted. On Earth, people flooded the streets, shouting the captain's words as if they were scripture. The message was clear: exile had ended. Humanity would no longer live in silence. The Council, humiliated, retreated to their chamber in anger and fear. Some demanded vengeance, others demanded peace, but all of them now understood the truth. Humanity could no longer be ignored. And in the quiet of the Aegis, as the crew repaired the scars of battle, the captain stood before the stars and whispered, "This was only the beginning." The battle with the Council fleet had ended, but its echoes spread like fire across the galaxy. News traveled faster than ships, carried on whispers, rumors, and intercepted transmissions. Every world, every race, every colony soon heard the same unbelievable story. A single human warship, the Aegis, had faced the combined power of the Council and survived. Not just survived, it had forced them to retreat. For humanity, it was a moment of pride that no one had felt in generations. On Earth, people poured into the streets, celebrating as if they had won freedom itself. Old veterans who remembered the day of exile wept openly, telling their grandchildren that the shame of humanity had finally been washed away. Colonists on Mars painted the word Aegis across their domes in bright red, so the whole sky seemed to shout the name. Even miners in the asteroid belt stopped their work, gathering around flickering screens to watch grainy recordings of the battle. But pride was not the only feeling. There was also fear. Everyone knew the Council would not forget what had happened. This was not just a skirmish. This was a humiliation that would echo in the halls of power for centuries. Humanity had defied the order of the galaxy, and now, vengeance might come. Some leaders on Earth begged for caution. They argued that the Aegis should hide, or even be dismantled, to avoid drawing the wrath of the Council. Others demanded preparation for war, calling for every shipyard to build more vessels like the Aegis. The world stood divided, unsure whether they had gained safety or invited destruction. In the Council itself, chaos ruled. Some species wanted to destroy humanity completely, to erase them from history before they grew even stronger. Others argued that attacking again would only bring more shame if they failed. And still others, quietly, wondered if perhaps the humans had been right all along. If a people so determined could rise from exile to build such a ship, maybe they deserved a place in the galaxy. The turning point came not from the council chambers but from the ordinary people of the galaxy. Traders, smugglers, and wanderers had long dealt with humans in secret, sneaking through blockade lines to buy their goods or sell them tools. These people began to speak. They told stories of how humans treated them fairly, how humans did not cheat them, how humans always honored their word. They compared this to the council, where corruption and arrogance had grown for centuries. Slowly, a dangerous idea began to spread, that maybe humanity was not the enemy. Maybe humanity was the future. The captain of the Aegis knew this shift was happening, though he could not yet see its full strength. After the battle, he stood before his weary crew and said, "We fought not only for survival. We fought for respect. And respect cannot be taken, it must be earned. Today, we earned it. Tomorrow, we will show them what humanity truly stands for." His crew, battered and exhausted, lifted their heads with pride. They had not only defended Earth. They had lit a flame that could not be put out. Across human space, preparations began. Engineers worked day and night to copy the Aegis's designs. Factories on Earth switched from civilian goods to weapons and armor. Colonists on Mars began training militias. Even small settlements on icy moons sent volunteers to learn how to fight. Humanity, long scattered and silent, was uniting again. It was not just one warship anymore. It was an entire people rising from exile. Meanwhile, something unexpected began to happen among the younger races of the Council. Small delegations reached out to humanity in secret. They sent quiet messages, hidden from their leaders, saying they admired the courage of the Aegis. They asked for talks, for trade, for the chance to share knowledge. They wanted to be part of something new, something free of the Council's control. For the first time, humanity was no longer alone. They had allies, even if those allies dared not yet reveal themselves. The true turning point came when a second Council fleet tried to test humanity's resolve. Smaller than the first but still powerful, it approached the borders of human space with the intent to intimidate. But this time, the Aegis did not face them alone. Dozens of smaller human ships, hastily built and armed, joined its side. They were not as strong, not as advanced, but their presence told the truth. Humanity was ready to fight together. When the Council fleet saw this, they hesitated. They fired no shots. They turned back into the void, leaving humanity untouched. It was not because they feared the smaller ships, but because they realized the danger was no longer just the Aegis. The danger was an entire people, united and unbroken. From that day, the galaxy shifted. The Council could no longer speak of humans as a weak, outcast race. The name of humanity was spoken with respect, and sometimes with fear, but never again with dismissal. The warship had changed everything, not only in battle but in spirit. The captain of the Aegis stood one night at the viewing deck, staring at the endless stars. He thought of the past, of the day humanity had been exiled, and how far they had come since then. He knew harder days were ahead. The Council would not give up easily. But he also knew something greater had begun. Humanity was no longer begging for a place in the galaxy. They were carving one for themselves, and nothing could stop them now. In the silence of space, the ship drifted forward, its scarred hull glowing faintly in the starlight. And in that silence, one truth became clear. Exile had been the Council's greatest mistake. For it had forced humanity to grow strong, to stand together, and to rise higher than ever before. And so the turning point was not just a battle, not just a retreat of enemies. It was the awakening of a destiny. Humanity had stepped back onto the stage of the galaxy, not as beggars, not as rebels, but as equals. The galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had changed, though the stars above looked the same. Once, humanity had been the outcast race, pushed into the shadows, forced to survive with no allies and no recognition. But now, everything felt different. The warship Aegis had become more than just a vessel. It was a symbol. It was proof that exile had not broken the human spirit, it had sharpened it. And that symbol echoed everywhere. On Earth, life began to transform. The cities that had once been filled with anger and despair were now filled with purpose. Factories that had been rusting came alive with fire and steel, building ships, weapons, and tools for exploration. Young men and women signed up in great numbers, ready to serve, ready to protect their people. The old shame of being exiled from the council was gone. In its place was pride, a new kind of pride that was not arrogant but determined. Humanity knew it had earned its place in the stars. The Aegis itself still sailed through space, scarred from battles but stronger than ever. Its crew had become legends, known by name across human space. Children whispered about them as if they were heroes from ancient myths. Merchants used their story to inspire courage, and settlers on faraway colonies built small statues of the ship out of stone or metal, as if to remind themselves that no one was too small to rise. The captain, who had once felt the crushing weight of being exiled, now carried the responsibility of guiding humanity into a future no one could have imagined. The council tried to hold on to its power. In their grand halls, debates raged endlessly. Some leaders demanded another war against humanity, insisting that their pride could not allow such defiance. Others whispered that war would only bring more loss. But slowly, cracks began to appear. Races that had once feared the council started asking questions. Why should the humans remain exiled if they had proven their strength? Why should one council decide the fate of all, when a single warship had shown the courage to stand alone? The old order began to tremble, though the council refused to admit it. Allies began to come forward openly. Small fleets from distant civilizations quietly entered human space, not with weapons but with gifts. They brought food, medicine, and technology as signs of friendship. In return, humanity shared what they had learned: how to survive exile, how to adapt, and how to build ships like the Aegis from nothing but determination and scarce resources. These exchanges were not official treaties, not yet, but they were the seeds of something greater, a network of trust beyond the council's reach. The greatest change, however, was within humanity itself. For the first time in centuries, the people of Earth, Mars, and the colonies were united. Old rivalries between nations dissolved, replaced by the knowledge that survival depended on standing together. No one spoke anymore of Earth nations or Martian clans. They spoke simply of humanity, and this unity gave them strength greater than any fleet. The captain of the Aegis knew that war might still come. The council had not forgotten their humiliation. There would be challenges ahead, battles, betrayals, and struggles to protect their allies. But he also knew that humanity no longer faced the galaxy as an outcast. They faced it as a people reborn. Every battle fought, every sacrifice made, had carried them here, to this new era. One night, as the Aegis traveled near the edge of human space, the captain stood at the viewing deck again. The stars stretched endlessly before him, the same stars that had once felt cold and distant. Now they seemed full of promise. He thought of the generations before him, who had lived in the shadow of exile, and of the generations to come, who would never know that shame. He whispered quietly to himself, "This is only the beginning." On a distant colony, a child looked up at the sky and asked his mother, "Will the humans always have to fight?" She smiled softly and said, "Maybe, But now we fight because we choose to, not because we are forced to. That is the difference. And the child nodded, not fully understanding, but feeling the pride in his mother's voice. The council would not vanish overnight. Its fleets still patrolled, its diplomats still schemed, and its arrogance still lingered. But the galaxy was no longer the same place. The idea of humanity's return had taken root in countless hearts and minds. That idea could not be destroyed by fleets or weapons. It was too strong, too alive. And so a new era began, not marked by grand declarations or treaties but by a quiet truth. Humanity had come back from exile, and nothing could erase that. They had been thrown out, humiliated, and left to fade away. Instead, they had risen stronger than anyone had ever believed possible. The Aegis sailed on, not as a lone warship anymore but as the first of many. Around it, new ships were being built, new fleets prepared, and new dreams shaped. Humanity was no longer at the edge of the galaxy, begging for acceptance. They were at its center, carving their destiny with courage, unity, and unshakable resolve. The exile was over. The warship had changed everything, and the stars themselves seemed to whisper of what was to come. A future where humanity was no longer forgotten, but remembered as the people who had turned exile into strength and shame into glory.